Great, so we can now call this meeting of the Sustainable Economy Task Force to order. It is May 30th, 2:10 p.m. And we're meeting here at the Albuquerque offices of the Department of Workforce Solutions. We're very appreciative to them for hosting us today. And we can go ahead and get started with roll call. So HED, Patricia Trujillo is here in person with us. GSD Secretary Doucette.
This is Dennis Romero filling in for him and for Anna Silva.
Dennis, hi. Nice to hear your voice on Zoom.
Hello.
Hello. We've been texting. Let's see. Okay, PED. We have Breezy Gutierrez.
Present.
Hi, Breezy.
Hi.
Okay, EDD. That's me. DFA. Leo Delgado. Okay. No one from DFA today. We'll see if they join us later. Do we have anyone from MNERD, Anna Linden?
Hi, everybody.
Hello. Okay, environment. Deputy Secretary Linneman or someone else?
This is Miori Harms here for Sydney Linneman.
Perfect. State lands. Do we have anyone from the State Lands Office? Okay. Department of Workforce Solutions.
Present.
Present. Okay. Tax and Revenue Department.
Lucinda Cito, present.
Hi, Lucinda.
Good afternoon.
Hi. And then our Sustainable Economy Advisory Council Chair, I believe, is arriving right now as we speak. So he will be present. Indian Affairs Department, Michael Chacon. Michael, I see you, but I can't hear you. But I see that you're present. So if you even want to type present in the chat or something like that, but we have you here. Oh, is that? Maybe not. Okay, State Investment Council. Charles or someone else?
Present, it's Francesca.
Hi, Francesca. Thanks for being with us. Yeah, and this is exciting because we have a few people from different agencies joining us as new designees, in particular, Dennis and Francesca. So welcome to you all. Did we have James here or no? Okay, cool. All right, well, that concludes roll call. So now I think we're going to go ahead and approve our agenda, and we will just quickly get that up on our end. Okay, share screen. Can everyone see this agenda?
Yes.
Yes.
So here's our agenda for today. And that's it. So do we have a motion to approve this agenda? And could you just say who you are when you motion?
So, Patricia.
Okay. Do we have a second?
Dennis Romero, General Services Department, seconded.
Perfect. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Seeing none opposed, we can now approve this agenda. And we will move to approving minutes from our last task force meeting, which was the 25th of April, 2024. And I will go ahead and get that up for you. Okay, here are those April minutes. I'll give you a second to look over them. We also circulated these. on email. I think that's it. Do we have a motion to approve these minutes from April 2024?
So moved.
Okay, do we have a second?
I second, Breezy.
Okay, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
This is Dennis Romero, General Services. I have to abstain because I wasn't there. Sorry.
Okay. We will note that. Thank you. Seeing none opposed, these minutes are approved. And now I would love to have a welcome from the secretary here at DWS who's hosting us. Would you like to say some words about this meeting or having us here in your space?
Sure, well,
Yeah.
thanks everybody for being here in our space, the Tiwa building. This was renovated in 2022. Using these theoretically energy efficient improvements. So there was like an energy savings analysis and I guess this building is doing better than it was before. And all these walls are sort of temporary, so you can hear everything everywhere. And we're just happy to see you here. We are not generally open to the public. We only have a couple of public facing people here, so we don't get a lot of company. That's why you had to go through security, but it's good to see you all. And we also have an office in Santa Fe, in the Willie Ortiz building, if you're ever up there. And
Okay, great. And so last time we discussed, and everyone seemed excited about it and happy about it, a tentative agenda for the remainder of the year. And that was responding to what we had already agreed for, hello, Marcela, for the advisory council. So the goal is that we of course want to get around the state. And we also want to recognize that a lot of our secretaries and designees are based in Santa Fe and Albuquerque. So creating a balance of locations that will accommodate that. And we were in Silver City this week for a wonderful meeting of the advisory council. So that was good. But I think we're going to go ahead and show you this draft schedule, which you have also received by email, and ask you to give us any comments or questions on that you might have before we vote and approve this draft schedule. And you can comment on topics or locations. All of this is tentative and subject to your input, but these are the topics that we discussed last time. So we have community benefits, infrastructure access, which we'll be planning in coordination with Rebecca Roos from the governor's office, revenue diversification. We'll take a moment in September to review input from the advisory council on the state plan. And then we will have hopefully a session in October on communities in transition. And that can refer to communities that are based in extractive industries. So we can talk about things like coal, oil and gas, mining, and stuff like that. So do any of our task force members have comments or questions on this schedule? And I'll just remind everyone to please speak slowly enough so that our interpreters can capture what you're saying to us. So we'll just open it up for discussion. Anybody online have any comments or suggestions? Sure, we have a question from the public.
For the advisory council feedback on the state plan, will that be, because I'm already thinking, how can we get folks from the Permian Basin involved? And that seems like a good one, but it probably won't be through SEEK. Will that be open for all input and public input on?
Yes.
The state plan?
Yeah, so we have,
Just-
yes, exactly. Yeah, and so this is, I'll cover a little bit of this later, but there are ample ways for public and civil society and NGO and research groups to give us their feedback. So that will be great. I think that particular conversation, like you're saying, is just for the advisory council feedback. But we're excited to get all forms of feedback on this. As you can see, this September meeting would be in Roswell. And I'm open to scheduling some listening sessions in town halls around that meeting. I was hoping to be there the whole week. And the corresponding meeting in September will hopefully be in that area as well. We're still coordinating that, but so I'm also open to suggestions around in-person sessions that we could host that would benefit that type of input. Does anyone have any final comments or questions about this draft agenda?
This is Lucinda Cito at the Taxation and Revenue Department. And I just have a scheduling idea. The revenue diversification, I know we've talked about that a little bit, and I can't speak for Leo Delgado, but it might be better for us to move that to the fall, as a lot of the economists will be working on the general fund forecast this summer and just giving us ample time to prepare for input on that one. Just a suggestion.
Yeah, and I definitely hear that. I think the only thing is that we will be providing updates to the legislature on the state plan in October. And so even if things are in motion and we're discussing where you're at and it's not finalized, I do think it's important to hold that conversation in advance. We can also have a follow-up conversation after those projections are prepared sometime in the fall. But does it sound okay to sort of start on that at least?
Absolutely. Yeah, if it's, a conversation started, that sounds good.
Yeah, and I did touch base with Leo about this as well. So I think just like how we've co-planned this meeting with Department of Workforce Solutions because of their expertise in workforce development, we would love to co-plan and potentially co-host with you and with Leo for that meeting in August.
Thank you.
Yeah, perfect. I see a hand from Dennis.
Yes, thank you. So Dennis Romero, General Services. I was going to make the suggestion, and I don't want to step on the Energy and Minerals representative, but the July 25th session, the infrastructure access, I realize you'll have Rebecca Roos there, but the Energy Conservation Management Division at EMNERD, the building you're sitting in was actually part of an ESCO project, or an energy savings performance contract project. They have a really good bureau there that's recently garnered some new members, and they have, I'll plug him, I hope it's okay, Anna, Harold Trujillo, the recently named Engineer of the Year for New Mexico Society of Professional Engineers, is their bureau chief. So I would say he's a wealth of knowledge, and there is some funding and some guidance he can offer. So I just thought I'd throw that out there. He's a wealth of information. I hope I'm not out of line, Anna. Thank you.
Oh, you're not. I mean, Harold's been involved in most of what the energy savings projects that we've done, if not all of them. Depending on the frame of infrastructure access, I mean, we can always host here. We don't entirely have we have one room we could maybe do and talk about the project. But I think it would depend on whether we're talking about energy efficiency in the sense of infrastructure, or infrastructure in the sense of accessing BIL or IRA funds, whether or not we want to center it on the Energy Conservation and Management Division or the Energy Office. So that's kind of up to Kayla, but we're certainly happy to.
Yeah, and that's a great point. Great points from both of you. I think all of those things are component parts of the discussion that we would be having. So it would be great to have input from Harold and others at EMNERD, and we can definitely include them in planning with us. We would love that. Any other comments on this draft agenda? Okay, well, seeing none, I think it's time to take a vote on this. And what we'll do is approve it and have it up on our EDD website alongside the 2024 schedule for the advisory council as well. And these are flexible. We can always vote to approve a change. But it's nice to have something in front of us to work from. So could I get a motion, please, to approve this schedule for the remainder of the year?
This is Dennis Romero. I move to approve schedule for the remainder of the year.
Do we have a
Hi.
second?
Kayla, can I chime in really quick? Denise Gonzalez with the Office of the Governor.
Hello.
I'll have to, I'm assuming Rebecca's not on here yet. She's in a meeting, but I'll have to double check with her on her schedule because I have her as out of town on July 25th. So I'll go ahead and double check her schedule and get back to you.
So I did confirm that date with her via text, so I think it should be okay. She had specifically requested that date.
Okay, perfect. Thanks so much. And I'll go ahead and check in with her on that anyway. But thanks for that.
Yeah, and then it's flexible, like I said, so if we need to amend it, we definitely can.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Hi, everyone. It's good to hear James Kobiwa. September 26th, review adversary, advisory, I almost said adversary, advisory council feedback on state plan. Is that going to give enough time to be able to incorporate all the feedback into your updates?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Yes. Great.
Second.
Okay, looks like we have a second from Advisory Council Chair Pobiwa. All in favor of approving?
Aye.
Aye.
I,
Any opposed? All right, this 2024 meeting schedule for the remainder of the year is approved. And with that, I believe we're going to move on to some presentations. Well, we have one slideshow, but we'll move on to presentations with multiple agencies contributing, which is what has brought us here. We would like to give you an overview of workforce development initiatives across state agencies that are relevant to a few topics in particular. So we'll go ahead and get those on the screen for you.
I have some stuff in the chat.
Okay. All right, I'm going to turn it over to Raquel. Test. All right, we're turning it over to Department of Workforce Solutions. Yeah.
Well, I'm gonna stand up because I'm a little sleepy and I'm guessing at least half of you are too, so sorry to the people on the screen, you might see my butt. Welcome everybody again. We're gonna go ahead to the next slide. We're gonna talk a little bit about some overviews of the labor market. For those of you who have seen our presentations before, we kind of update this and do this one pretty regularly. And then we're going to talk about, if you don't mind going back to the agenda one, and then we're going to talk about some specific initiatives, and then we'll ask the department folks, and Raquel will keep an eye on the screen for when if anybody wants to jump in who's presenting on behalf of the department either here or on the screen, please let us know and we'll turn it over to you to discuss your department's initiatives. And those are some of the topics. Next slide, please. All right, so this is the overall unemployment rate for the month of April. Am I right there, Rachel? Yeah, okay. So you can see here in New Mexico, we're doing okay. You know, we're close to Colorado. We're doing better than Texas, Nevada, and California. We are doing a little worse than the country as a whole in over the year change in non-farm employment, but generally we're still seeing an increase in jobs year over year, which is a good thing. Then looking a little bit deeper into unemployment rates, a lot of data, but I'll tell you what to kind of focus on. Over here in the left-hand column, you have demographics. In the second column, you have January 2024. Third column is December 2023, and then the last column is January 2023. If it's in green, in light green, then that means we're doing better than the national average at that point the state average at that point in time. If it's in dark green, we're not only doing better than the state average at that point in time, but we're also moving in the right direction, which is good. And then red is the opposite. So when you see a red square, it means we're doing a little worse in that demographic category than we are in the state as a whole. And when it's dark red, it's doing poorly and moving in the wrong direction. So you'll see that some highlights, we've got 20 to 24-year-olds of all genders, and white folks doing a great job. And then we have in the red squares, the dark red squares, 45 to 54, all ethnicities and genders, and then the 65 plus, pretty high unemployment rate. And we always caution against just like looking at the unemployment rate as just an all determining factor, because sometimes if people are moving from not working to working, you might see an increase in the unemployment rate, might be a good thing. And we'll talk about that a little bit later. Slide. Okay, this is my favorite slide because I think this talks to what people feel on the ground the most in terms of the shortages of finding employees. If you are one of our state agencies, you know that probably wherever you work, you're trying to hire and it's hard. And so this blue line here is the estimated number of job openings. The orange line is the estimated number of people who are unemployed and looking for work. And you can see that in right around July 2021, those lines crossed and there became more available jobs than there were people who were looking for work. You kind of got at its worst right in September 22 when we actually started keeping track of this stat. And I had to present that number was a little over 38,000. We're doing better here. The gap is down to 32,355 estimated. So it's doing better, but it's still a real crunch that you all feel with the communities that you work with and trying to find people. And this doesn't even speak to mismatches in skill sets or geography or any of that. And then we added this green line at the top, which is overall employment. So sometimes I used to get the question, well, is this blue line just reflecting that people are giving up and not posting jobs anymore, as opposed to people filling those jobs? And I think as long as we see this green line move up, which it has been, then we're probably really seeing people fill jobs as opposed to employers giving up. That's in very broad strokes. Of course, individual employers are probably giving up, but that's kind of the way that we look at all these lines in relationship to each other. So bottom line, still got a lot of work to do in terms of the workforce. Next slide, please. So you've probably heard that there's a low labor force participation rate in New Mexico. It's usually around the lowest or second lowest or bottom 5 in the country. But to help sort of understand this a little bit more, we've been talking about this in sports metaphor terms. I apologize to those who don't like sports metaphors, but I think even if you hate sports, you know the concept of the stands, the bench, which is where you sit when you're ready to play, and the field. And so when we kind of look at our labor force in those terms, we see that we've got people employed. It's going in the right direction. And these stats are old because it takes about till August to get the last year's stats. So, but 2023, we've got about 872,900 people employed, which means they're on the field, they're doing jobs. Now of those, about 25,000 are they're calling themselves involuntarily part-time, meaning they feel like they could work more hours, but for whatever reason, they're not able to find that job or they're not. And you can see that's a good improvement from the year before. Then the people who I call on the bench are these people who are unemployed and looking for work. And you can see that
that number has gone down, which is why we have a good unemployment rate, but also maybe why it's still hard to find people to do jobs. And we see a little higher percentage of them on unemployment insurance. And then here's the people that when you hear people say, we got to get people back into the labor force, here's where they are right now. There's still a lot, 169,600 here, but, and this is all, this is all survey data. So it's not like we called people, every single person up and said, why aren't you working? But in broad strokes, right, of the 169, like the vast majority say they do not want a job now. Now that could be for any reason. That could be they are a stay-at-home parent, they are disabled, they are independently wealthy, they, whatever. I mean, there's all kinds of reasons not to work. It's not a value judgment, but that's what they're saying. And then want a job but have not looked is a smaller number, 7,200. Searching and available now is a larger number, 4,700. And you can see that both of those are, I don't know if they're moving in the right direction or wrong direction. Ideally, we want to see people move closer and closer to the field if we want to be able to fill those 33,000 jobs that we still have a hard time filling. Next slide, please. And then this slide speaks a little bit to the dynamics among the stay on the bench and the field. So you can see that of the people who are unemployed but looking, these are USDOL terms. I would never call anyone a loser, but unemployed people who are moving to the benches. So people moving from the field to the benches are either people who left their job or who lost their job, and there's about 18,000 of them. People who are going from not in the labor force at all to unemployed but looking, it's a really pretty low number, 3,300. This is the dynamic we're trying to create, right? We're trying to get people who are not in the labor force into the labor force, but it's just like if you were physically at a stadium. The higher you are in the stands, the harder it is to get down to the field. And so when we talk about removing barriers, we talk about outreach, we talk about building excitement for engaging in careers, that's what we're really talking about. We got to get more numbers out of these new entrants as opposed to people just kind of cycling between the bench and the field. Next slide, please. Our biggest challenge is why. And this talks about why, and it talks about the first column, the blue one is 2023, then 2024, men, women, 25 to 54. The biggest takeaway here is that 60% of people are in the other category, which any of you who've done survey work, right, you know that probably we're not asking the right questions if most people end up in the other category. And so we have been looking at ways that we're probably going to ask for funding next year to do a more direct survey of our labor force that maybe in our non-working population to really understand those dynamics better. But a couple other things that kind of stand out, women are in school or training at a little higher rate than all the other categories. And you see men are a little more in the discouraged over job prospects category. And so that's really the only insight that I draw from this slide, other than we need a lot more research to understand why people aren't working. And then regionally, this is just a little snapshot. So the lighter the color, the stronger the population gain, right? The more people who have come to your state. And that can be from in-state or out of state, right? It includes moving around. So we know that one of the big problems with our labor force shortage is that we lost about 30,000 New Mexicans between 2010 and 2020. And we know that about 20,000 of those people were working. And now we've lost not only them, but they're at the age where they're having kids who are aging into the workforce and would have probably been more likely to be working because the children of parents who work are more likely to work. So we know that population drain is a big part of it. And although New Mexico has had some population change, really the net migration number is still pretty low. Most of the change is sort of in the, we're still seeing more deaths than births. Next slide, please. Okay. So these next few slides are going to kind of talk about how we got to where we got in terms of the occupational projections. And I don't know what happened to the words on this slide. So maybe we won't spend a lot of time here, but basically these aren't like official economic categories, but when we look at our occupational projections, which go from 2020 to 2030, and they're based on basically, projections based on economic activity in the base year and pulled through to the future years, We see taking care of each other that includes healthcare and education and training is where we see the most growth. Building our infrastructures, the second most, when we count their building maintenance, construction, extraction, and then creation and innovation is that last category, and that includes arts and entertainment, architecture, and now architecture and engineering is in building our infrastructure. So apologies for that slide. We'll clean it up before we send it out in PDF. Next slide. But we also know that there's a lot of reasons why these numbers maybe aren't exactly what we're looking at for the future. One of them is that they don't account for the pandemic and for all the crazy things that have happened in the past few years or all the billions of dollars of infrastructure funding. But another reason is that the future of work is just changing really rapidly. So I won't read all of these slides, but I think some of the highlights are 65% of children entering primary school today will end up working in new job types that don't yet exist. So one of the challenges in primary education and secondary and in college education and in the workforce is how do we prepare people for these future jobs if we don't know what they're even going to be or what skill sets they're going to require. And then a lot of people in a hybrid arrangement, and an estimated 1 billion people in the world are estimated to need reskilling by 2030, which is like soon, 6 years from now. Next slide, please. Now, when we drill down a little bit into the energy economy, if we look at we talk a lot about this energy transition, right? So we're moving from fossil fuels to other types of fuels. And this is the average annual salary in energy sectors, all occupations. And nuclear is always the highest, but you can see that fossil fuels is actually kind of the middle of the pack when you're looking at all professions. And that gives some cause for optimism for the economic transition. But next slide, please. When you pull out only trades and labor, this is where the picture gets a little tougher because you'll see that the average annual salary in trades and labor in fossil fuel is that 83,000, which you've probably seen in connection with closing down things like the San Juan generating station. And then you see solar all the way down. These are in the same order that they were in on the previous slide. Solar at 2/3 of that salary, geothermal kind of coming close, hydroelectric, which we're not the best state in the world for, 86,000, and then nuclear, of course, always pays a lot because of the high risk. But this is where we really see concern. We're going to see families who have historically been able to make it on one salary needing to go to 2 salaries, or we need to do something to fix this or to create more parity in the alternative energy fields for the trades and labor. Please. So just in case people don't know, or when we talk about the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act, which we sometimes call WIOA, it's actually it's not just us. And so I'm going to talk about the WIOA State Plan, which again was put together with the help of many people in this room, but also is the workforce plan for all of these agencies. So Workforce Solutions, and then specifically the Adult Education Bureau and Higher Ed, specifically SNAP reemployment, the food stamps reemployment section of the Healthcare Authority. It's our 4 Workforce Connection local boards. It's the Commission for the Blind and DVR who do WIOA Title IV for people with disabilities. And then Aging and Long-Term Services has the Senior Community Employment Program. So all of these are WIOA titles and all of them are part when we talk about the WIOA State Plan. Next slide, please. So we took all of what we just talked about and turned it into some goals for our state. And we kind of divided our one of the things every WIOA plan does is target priority sectors. And we divided our priority sectors into 2 different things. And this first one has to do with things we need right now to take care of each other in the place we love. So healthcare, first responders, early childhood, construction, natural resource management, and broadband expansion. None of these have ever been in the New Mexico WIOA State Plan before, as far as we can tell, except maybe healthcare has popped up a couple times. So this was a really, I think, positive development that came out of this year's planning process. Instead of always looking at future focused industries, we were really looking at some things that are happening right now in our communities. Next slide. And then the second is really about that future of work piece. So it's energy transition, sustainable and value-added agriculture, bioscience, aerospace, manufacturing, intelligent manufacturing, climate resilience. These are all lumped together because just based on the profile of our current population, it's going to take a longer pipeline to be able to fill these industries. We're going to have to start in elementary and middle school with career exposure to some of these fields and work our way through to building a pipeline of workers. Next slide. And then our next goal is to increase the labor force participation rate, but specifically by focusing on disengaged and difficult to reach New Mexicans. So this is where in this part of the plan, we talk about specifically about outreach to various demographics that historically have been underrepresented in the workforce. And then goal 4 is to attract workers from out of state, which some people are kind of like, huh, why? Well, I just kind of explained what's happened to our population. We know that even if we all kicked butt for the next 10 years, unless some people start moving to New Mexico or back to New Mexico, we're not going to be able to fill these challenges. And so this goal has to do with working with some of our partners in EDD and tourism, as well as all of the WIOA partners to say, let's help employers tell the story of New Mexico that we tell in the airports and so forth about how cool New Mexico is, come visit. And let's translate that into come live here and do the jobs that we need people to do. Next slide, please. So just to summarize everything we just talked about, for the near future, we're going to continue to compete for workers within our state. And the winning employers are going to be those who can adapt to the modern workforce and expand their candidate pools. And then we need to enhance what makes humans different. I mentioned that we don't know what specifically the jobs are that we need in the future, but we do know that what's going to set apart the jobs that can be replaced by robots and AI from the jobs that can't be is resiliency, adaptability, critical thinking, empathy, emotional intelligence. Some of you might have read about APS restoring arts and music funding. Yay. That's the kind of thing we have to do, not just in the elementary and middle schools and high schools, but throughout our entire workforce system, because those are the types of programs that are going to give people the skills that will allow them to compete in the future. And then, sorry, could you go back? Partner. I love the partnerships that I see happening in this room and through the SEP force, but none of us is going to be able to meet these challenges alone. So we just keep stressing that we have to work together. And then get ready and stay ready. So, you know, we talk a lot about, especially in economic development world, we were always trying to attract companies to New Mexico, right? And it used to be that conversation was very much about what does your population look like now? What are your roads like? What are your schools like? And it's really changed over the past, even just the past couple of years where since I've been here, which is that it's really become about agility. Employers understand we're going to move here and we're going to reskill people because no place really has the ready and available workforce for any of the sort of forward-looking companies that we see. I mean, call centers, that kind of thing, yeah, sure. But for any kind of forward-looking industry, companies are understanding they're going to have to get to a place and reskill. So how do we demonstrate that we're agile, that we're working together enough that we can meet those needs, which are kind of really different than looking at our baseline. And I think they make that dynamic makes New Mexico a lot more competitive, especially with our surrounding states. And then basic needs, right? So every meeting we have of workforce partners, it comes down to healthcare, housing, transportation, substance abuse, domestic violence. These are the things keeping people out of the workforce or making it difficult for people to access the resources that we have. And so we have to stay focused on that all as a collective. And then equity is just sort of the underpinning for the whole. I got a question in Gallup that was in prepping for a meeting in Gallup that was like, what do you do that has to relate to equity? And I was like, we try to infuse equity into every single piece of what we're doing, because otherwise it just doesn't make sense. We don't have an equity division. We don't have an equity office. Our goal is to infuse it into every single thing that we're doing. Next slide, please. And so this is our sort of model for trying to get funding, all this workforce funding that's raining from the skies and passing through all of your different departments. And we're really focusing on just a few core tools: pre-apprenticeship, apprenticeship, specialized training, and our Be Pro, Be Proud initiative. We're focusing on a few different demographics, but old energy economy workers are kind of one of our focuses that was relevant to this meeting. And then we're focusing on wraparound services. That used to be like an exclusively social work term. Now you hear it everywhere. but we have to meet everybody with career counseling, support services, and basic education. And that's another reason we have to partner. And then these are sort of the priority sectors for all that federal funding. Next slide, please. And this is just the pathway that we're seeing. So if you ask us to help you write a grant, this is what you're going to see, because we're not going to invent 27 different programs that we then have to figure out how to administer. And I could tell that from your faces that you know exactly what I mean, right? So all of the model is we're going to take all of our target populations, and that includes, like I mentioned, the old energy economy workers, TANF participants. This is a really important piece for us. We run the TANF education training program, New Mexico Works, justice involved individuals, out of school youth and in-school youth. And we try to bring them into the system, whether they're walking into a workforce connection center office or they're coming to a rapid hire event, try to grab them with these basic services of career counseling, support services, really connecting them to basic education, mostly because HED has become so awesome about partnering and promoting everything that's going on in adult education there. And then the Be Pro, Be Proud initiative, which I feel like most people have seen by now, but this is the virtual reality sort of sampler of different careers in infrastructure and healthcare to get people excited about those careers. So you move through that, and we're trying to get you either into specialized training, apprenticeship, or pre-apprenticeship. If you're going the specialized training or pre-apprenticeship route, you get into the apprenticeship, and then that gets you into those targets.
Live coverage of this incredibly consequential day in the history of these United States. After more than 11 hours of deliberations over 2 days.
Oh, we're not going to hear the verdict.
Is now muted.
Something just happened. If somebody wants to Google it, I won't be mad if you want to announce it. So that's the model that we're using for every single grant that we're working on together. Next slide, please. So now this is the part where I get to turn it over to other folks. And I kind of have these divided into current programs, and then some of the applications that we have out, and then into each department's sort of existing sort of core workforce functions. So whoever would like to speak for MNerd on this one.
Yeah, and I think we have Anna Linden online, and we also have Margarita here in person. So we'll let you guys talk through some of those.
Yeah, I would love to hand it over until we get to the slide on the reclamation programs, which I can probably talk a little bit more about.
So we have, I'm Margarita Garn, I'm with ECMP at Gardner, and I manage the training for residential energy contractors. The acronym is TREC, and that is the formula grant. And we are expecting the funding in fall or the winter this year. And we're going to be issuing an RFP in the summer. And this is the 1.5 million for training and certification of HVAC, electricians, plumbers, energy auditors, and home performance contractors. And we're working with DWS as one of our grantees. And besides, I don't know if there is another one here, but we also have, so this one is the formula grant. We also have another one, it's also called TREC.
That's on the slide, it's just right below it.
Yeah, TREC 2.
Oh, TREC 2, no, that's
so the TREC 2 is actually it's similar, but it's a competitive grant. And we also have an energy right there, energy auditor training.
Yeah.
So that is the energy auditor training, we're calling it New Mexico KIT. And that is going to be, we applied for 1.3 to 2 million, and that is specifically for energy auditors. So the TREC has different contractors that can be trained under TREC, but this one is specifically for energy auditors. And we submitted the concept paper about 2 weeks ago, and we got the green light to continue with the full application. And that's July 12th, so we're gonna be applying for that grant too. And that is a competitive one. I think,
If you want to go back, if we have any more,
Yeah,
we'll
we
hit them
have
for
a few,
sure.
but we'll wait for Anna Linden to jump in on this slide. I'll just make sure that oops, I don't know
We
what
got a
it's-
few more to go back.
Yeah, so
Is it this one?
there's should be 2 slides that talk about remediation. This is the first one. This, if you go back one, actually.
So this one's
Thank
in
you. No, not that far. Forward one more.
This?
Okay. Yeah, this is fine. So we received from the federal government under our oil conservation division, which has the responsibility for plugging orphan wells, a first tranche of $25 million. And this year we just received a second tranche of another 25. We've also received some money from the legislature to expand and improve our well plugging activity. One of the interesting things about well plugging, and this goes to some of the earlier slides from Workforce Solutions on how the labor force is paid in different energy industries. Well plugging is done by the same people who do well drilling. It is the same training, it's the same rigs. And as we set up this program, we were in competition for rigs and for workers. And what we ended up discovering was while we couldn't necessarily guarantee the same high pay, we could guarantee relatively high pay and a stable and semi-permanent working structure, which is not usually true in the oil field, where people will sign on for like a 3-week gig and they'll be away from their families for 3 weeks, and then look for another one. We can provide you're going to work these hours Monday to Friday, and you can go home on weekends, and there's going to be work for you for the next, as long as we can find money to have this work. So we have at max had 6 rigs working. That's about 6% of the active rigs in the Permian Basin, which is small, but when you think about it, the amount of oil field work that's being done and that we're able to pull even that much just the first year away from traditional drilling to do this remediation drilling and plugging. It's an interesting piece of data for us about what kinds of benefits will draw people to doing work in environmental remediation that uses their already present skills. So that's basically what I wanted to talk about for this slide. And then we can go on to the next one. And I'm going to hand it back over.
For some reason, these are all mixed up.
Yeah, these are not in the order we expected them to be in. I'm sorry.
That's probably my fault, because I tried to put the current ones separate from the future ones.
Oh, okay.
Because it felt a little confusing to go back and forth.
Okay. Yeah, we had them sort of divided by program, like who's responsible. So these ones are ECMD programs. So I think that I'm confused now at this point. I apologize.
Okay, here's a new one. Who's going to talk about that?
Okay.
Thanks, Elizabeth, for ending that off and navigating that. So I'm Miori Harms. I'm with NMED, and I'm in the Office of Strategic Initiatives. I am charged with implementing House Bill 164, and it's called the Uranium Mine Cleanup Act. It was passed in 2022. I was hired at the very end of 2022, so I've been in this position for about 18 months. One of the features of that bill is to do workforce development, and there's 2 parts to that. There's job training programs and business development programs. I haven't done anything on the business development side yet, other than working with industry, and which is coded into that act. So the job training program, is really exciting. We've been working on this, from day one. I've been working with Rachel, who stepped out, but, and Veronica, and they've been absolutely wonderful. We started in Farmington with San Juan College. They're gonna be the job training host. We've signed an MOU with San Juan College, Department of Workforce Solutions and NNED to create a new kind of job training program. So that will include an employer-led curriculum, which we're just wrapping up now and finalizing the reports on. But it was to include all of the companies who are doing environmental work. And it started out as uranium reclamation work, and that is such a small subset. And what we realized is all of the companies who do uranium reclamation, the earth movers, the well drillers, they kind of just do all environmental reclamation. So we expanded our program to be from uranium to environmental cleanup. And that's how we marketed it, for careers remediating environmental waste. And we are just, I'm just really excited it's actually coming together. So this is one part of taking a more holistic approach to uranium cleanup in the state. You know, a lot of people ask me, you know, it's been 70 years. Why don't we
Hey,
have
partner.
Oh,
How's it going?
some sites have been cleaned up, but we don't know about them. And then they were cleaned up and the regulations changed and had to go back in. So they're undergoing those permitting processes again. There are also sites that have never been touched that were mined before permitting regulations were in place, and those are the ones that this job training program is gearing up to support. So we call those neglected, contaminated sites, and they have no responsible party. We can't call anyone in to clean it up. Nobody's there, so we can't regulate anyone. So we are creating the uranium mine cleanup program to address those sites, and we want to make sure that once we set that program up, that the dollars stay in New Mexico. So part of that is having a workforce that's trained here to work locally to clean their own homes. So we've worked with Workforce Solutions with figuring out how we were going to engage WIOA partners in that. That's integrated into the MOU. And
I think there was someone online asking you to speak closer to the mic.
Should I just sit over there?
You can even just go to the front if you want to go next to, it's all right over there.
Okay, now I feel more official. So, and then ETA stands for the Energy Transition Act. So though that money would only apply to those who are transitioning from, say, coal, with the closing of the San Juan generating station and migrating those workers, retraining them into environmental reclamation. So Rachel, who was here earlier, did a skills analysis for the entire state, but included Farmington area. And basically we determined, yes, there is a workforce here that is still available to be retrained into our crew program towards environmental reclamation. There was a little bit of hesitancy at first when we first talked about this, that, well, we don't want to just create another job training program that doesn't end with a job and hiring. That's a waste of everybody's time and money. So we wanted to make sure that the employees were engaged early on. And that's why I've compiled a list of employers who are working actively in this, who have job openings. We've been evaluating those job openings and looking at the requirements, and we have tried to match that. So then not only do they come out with the requirements, but those employers can be engaged on day one when they start, even in the application process, to make sure that when those candidates graduate, they have employment waiting on the other end. One of the surprising things that came out of this, and that was part of my collaboration with working with the Northwest Council of Governments, is that the commercial driver's license is a huge deal for the Northwest corner of the state, in Grants, Gallup, and Farmington. So, and this organically came up in my conversations with the industry. They really need commercial driver's license, forklift drivers, certified employees. And that's because a lot of the reclamation is earth moving work. So it's transporting materials, mostly dry materials, and being able to manage all of that heavy equipment. So while you may not think of associating uranium reclamation with CDL driving, that was a huge connection that we made, and we definitely got that into the job training program that we'll be posting with Dr. Reyes at San Juan College. So we're really excited about that. We have a marketing plan for the summer. You can already sign up to get notified when that opens up. We will soon be publishing our website with more information and FAQ that Workforce Solutions vetted. Thankfully, thank you for doing that. And we're expecting San Juan College to open registration in October, November this year. So that's been almost a 1.5 year long road that we are almost to the end of. So really excited about that. Let me just make sure I got everything. Yeah, and the 4 to 12 week duration. Sorry, Kayla, got my back to you. It varies because we have kind of a basic set of skills training, and then the CDL license is a 2-month, 8-week training in itself. And so we weren't sure, that kind of varies on who the candidate is and if they choose to do CDL. If they don't want to do CDL, they have the option of training for a GIS specialty, and that was requested by the industry as well. Oh, I'm sorry, GIS is Geographical Information System. So any mapping tool that you see, you may have heard of ArcMap Pro or QGIS. Our uranium dashboard, if you've seen that, is on ArcMap Pro. And so if you go to our website and you see all of the sites for uranium, that is a interactive web mapping tool that we developed on GIS. So they'll have basic training like radiation training, hazardous waste materials training, CPR, first aid, some basic Microsoft Office related skills, critical thinking, teamwork, and then they will go into mapping or CDL. So that's kind of the structure of the program. So
for you and Anna and Lyndon, I was wondering do you all know the average salary for whether it's orphan wells or other environmental cleanup, what the average salary is for the various jobs? No worries if you don't have it off the top.
I don't have that off the top of my head. I would guess in the ballpark between 60 and 100,000. It's actually fairly high, especially in this economy right now. We were looking at projects 5 years ago that could have been done with $500,000 that today are not doable with $2 million because of inflation and the cost of people, the manpower. So I'm hoping that is because salaries are also increasing. Yeah, I don't have that number.
I can not get enormously more specific, but so we're looking probably because these are contract based. So a yearly salary has to be extrapolated, but we're looking at the high 70,000, low 80s.
Another question? Yeah, I have two. When you say they're contract based, can you just tell us what that means? That means that the individuals are employees and contractors, or these are actual contractors? I'm curious just because immigrants who are undocumented are contractors if they're in the U.S. Anna Lyndon, I think the question was about what you mean when you say contract based.
Oh, I mean that these are not, we don't hire a well plugging team to be like your well pluggers and you have a salary and benefits, and if there's a well to plug, you're hired. It's more like we've hired a well plugging rig and crew for a particular set of wells that need to be plugged. However, those contracts, they're on the state price agreement, and we renew them over and over again. So we keep working with the same companies, and they are, I think, something like 97% local, which is pretty good. But because of it's not like a source of state funds, it's a federal grant. We can't we have not started a well plugging company. We are the state giving grants to well plugging companies to do this work.
The second question is, this sounds like a phenomenal training program in Farmington, with Dr. Reyes. And so are any of these things offered in Spanish?
That would, at this point,
Or is there any work with adult ed to shore up Spanish language or English language skills for Spanish speakers in the Farmington area? Because there is I mean,
Yeah,
it
it's
is
a good
most
question.
very Native American, but it's also very Latino.
yeah, I think I would have to defer to Salem College on that. We didn't make it a requirement. I'm not sure that we could have made it a requirement. I don't know if there's any standards on the ETPL system, because it's gonna go on the ETPL system, which then, can be disseminated. So if that's a requirement there, then the answer is yes. But I didn't see any paperwork for that, but thanks for bringing that to my attention. We should be incorporating that.
And my understanding is that San Juan has a great adult education.
They do,
partnership
and great
with
IETs,
IRA.
they have some of the
Yeah.
best IET programs in the state, so. We've talked to Dr. Reyes, we have a very robust team of women and men, both documented and undocumented. A lot of the men actually travel out of state, originally worked in oil and gas or in gas, natural gas. And so they travel a lot out of state, but we're wanting to now engage them, since we have a robust group there, in a lot of the other efforts that are meant to transition other workers in that area. So we're just curious.
Okay. Yeah, we haven't gotten that far yet.
They honestly have a Spanish language CDL. I mean, I don't know, but I would be surprised if they didn't.
Yeah,
They have such a good programming there.
And for anyone online who didn't hear any of that, there was just some discussion about language access and Spanish language access for the programming that our colleague from Environment was talking about. Okay, we'll skip forward to the next one and see what we have. We talked about that.
So we can, Raquel, you want to take the PCIC?
Yeah. The Current Climate and Infrastructure Careers Challenge is.
So they can hear you.
We submitted an application to the Families and Workers Fund for the Powering Climates and Infrastructure Careers Challenge, which is up to $1.5 million in technical assistance to help create a roadmap for creating an infrastructure and clean energy workforce. So we're still in consideration for that. We hope to find out within the next couple of weeks. There were 3 rounds for this application, including an interview with Puck, Sarah, and Claudia from Environment. So we have a really great team, and we're hoping to engage almost, or everybody here, right? Everyone will be a part of this, and really create a robust roadmap and program for us to kind of, mirror with every future grant application that we submit, whether that's with Margarita or anybody else, and just, creating a really successful program with that.
And then someone from Environment, I don't know if that's you, you're going to talk about CPRG.
I am gonna have to defer to Sydney if she's joined the call. I know she was double booked, but I have not been involved in that because I'm do the uranium reclamation only. So I think I would have to defer any questions to Sydney Linneman after the call.
You know a little bit about this one too, because we're the partners.
Yeah, CPRG, I believe it's a $200 million application. Done through Environment, and the workforce piece, and I'm familiar with the workforce piece, will be $1 million towards the zero emission trucks and towards zero emission school buses, which includes the Clean Truck Incentives Program. So it's a big grant that was submitted by Environment. There were a lot of partners that were engaged. There were a lot of community meetings so that we could get feedback from the community on what the program would look like. But I know that the group that did it, I think it was Colt and Michael, And Jacqueline did a really great job, and we were engaged in a part of the workforce.
And the next one's MNERD, Energy Auditor Training. You talked
Yeah.
about already?
That's the one I discussed earlier, yes.
And then, you want to handle the safe grant?
Yeah, the state apprenticeship expansion funding is part formula funding and part competitive funding. We did submit for both. The competitive funding portion of this program would build pre-apprenticeship opportunities, which lead or create a pipeline to apprenticeship opportunities and infrastructure. We did partner with the 412. We got a lot of help from Joan and Stephanie from building trades. So we're hoping to hear back from DOL on this within the next few months. And that again focuses on the pre-apprenticeship to apprenticeship pipeline, specifically for infrastructure jobs.
As far as we can tell, is that I can't remember, but I think that might have some of the same limitations in terms of authorization to work that we have in WIOA, because it is Department of Labor funding. And if Rebecca's not on, I can take this one. So the USDA climate, the United States Climate Alliance does these multi-state sort of agreements, and we're on the new one, which is about climate workforce. And so it's actually been kind of interesting. They do a process of sort of consensus building, and it feels like there's maybe 20 states on there, and trying to decide what we want to commit to and what we want to commit our state to. So we've talked about some core values for the climate ready workforce, and some of those include, you know, equity considerations and making sure that they're good jobs. So jobs that pay well, have good benefits, and are safe. We've talked about setting workforce targets for certain sectors of the climate ready workforce, which I had to ask, but you may all know, but I had to ask. It includes sort of preparation, mitigation, and then also what they call adaptation, which is what we call emergency response. So it would go all the way from, you know, anything we're doing to get to avoid climate change, like the fossil fuel transition, all the way to firefighters and emergency responders who have to deal with the consequences of climate change. And so there's no money associated with this, but we're hoping to come to an agreement with all these other states and then move forward together. And then we have an appropriation, thanks mostly to the advocacy of SOMOS, for energy transition workforce initiatives. We got $750,000 from a $50 million appropriation to EDD, and we're just in the baby steps of working on that now, but we're exploring a partnership with early childhood to train Permian Basin energy workers, including family members, to become early childhood care providers. We like this approach because it's not only a job, but it's also a support service for other families who are going to need to be possibly employing a larger portion of their family in the energy transition. Thank you. And then MNERD, this is their slide on your general workforce initiatives. I'm not sure who's going to cover that.
I think we've basically covered all of these things in the other programs. This is originally our first slide. Sorry for the confusion about how they should go. So essentially we're very invested in building a clean energy workforce, especially in the sectors that we have direct contact with. And we're really grateful to have the partnerships that we do.
Yes. I bring my computer with me though. My eyes aren't working as well as they used to.
Yeah. So I'm representing adult education, and Dr. Amber Gallup is the director there, along with her great staff, have been working so hard to build the collaborations and connections with
DWS and other areas. But specifically, I wanted to talk about the integrated education and training funding. Adult Education Division is one of the 9 divisions of the Higher Education Department. Oftentimes, folks don't realize that Adult Ed is nested under us, but we really love to believe at HED that there's no wrong door to higher ed. And so we're really glad to be working with Adult Ed to create those pathways. Adult education serves approximately 11,000 people per year and is funded through Title II of WIOA. And so one of the programs that Adult Ed right now is really concentrating on is the IETs, which are a nationally recognized model of integrating academic instruction, workforce preparation, and workforce training. New Mexicans can earn their high school equivalency or improve English language proficiency skills while earning an industry recognized credential. Currently, New Mexico is 47th in the nation in adults without a high school diploma or an equivalent. And so Adult Ed really is a key workforce development partner. And so just a little bit more, Adult Education is currently running IET programs throughout New Mexico for a variety of industry recognized credentials. So for example, emergency medical technician, community health worker, heavy equipment operator, which I heard was relevant to the remediation projects, child development specialist, phlebotomist, welding. If you would like to see a complete list of the IETs, there is a dashboard at propelnm.org, and I can get that out to everybody, or it's in the PowerPoint that will be shared with everybody. And Adult Education is ready to partner with sister agencies to develop more IETs, and this would require some braided funding. IETs are an ideal pre-apprenticeship model as well, creating true pathways for adults from marginalized or economically disadvantaged communities. And also, we just want to uplift, amplify Somos un Pueblo Unido for their work in advocating this session. In House Bill 303, where workforce training funds pilot, the passage of this bill makes New Mexico the first state to develop a pilot program to provide monthly cash stipends to low-income adult education students enrolled in IET programs. And so we will promote access to and the completion of IET programs, because oftentimes, as mentioned before, those basic needs can become the obstacles to being able to complete programs fully. So we have a lot of folks who start but do not complete currently, and we're hoping that these funds help to address that. So funds for the pilot will be drawn down from a total of $6 million over the next 3 years to support the IET programs. And I believe it's $1 million of that $6 million that are dedicated specifically to HB 303. And Adult Ed wants to partner with you to develop IETs to help adults transition to high quality jobs while improving English and or earning their high school equivalency. And so if we can ever be of service, if you just want our favorite term at HED, throw spaghetti at the wall, we're available. And, you know, I speak on behalf of Dr. Gallup and her team, who I know would love to work with anybody in the room. Any questions?
I just want to add one thing on the, because we did started partnership like last week with some of the HED to work on the energy auditor training program. So you know, really excited to see these, you know, not just throwing spaghetti on the wall, but actually
Yeah, spaghetti.
But it's good. Thank you.
Do we have anyone online from PED who would like to present? Hi, Breezy.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Breezy Gutierrez. I'm the director of the College and Career Readiness Bureau at the Public Education Department. And so the Public Education Department has different initiatives that are working towards supporting these workforce initiatives. So my office oversees career technical education, which is the pipeline to creating career technical education programs of study that start at the secondary level that are supposed to meet the need of high skill, high wage, and high need career opportunities within the state of New Mexico. So this year we revised our state plan, just like other agencies did, and we gave more flexibility to the use of Perkins funding. So about $8 million per year goes into Perkins funding for secondary and post-secondary programs of study. We have a career clusters guide that has all of these programs of study in the 16 career clusters. And so our statewide priorities, so this year we went around the state, we had 10 regional meetings with the workforce boards, which provided the labor market information for the state as well as each region. And we determined the state priorities were business, information technology / computer science, and education and training. And so that came from researching labor market information, researching the needs that we have within our local communities, and then really looking at what some of the careers that are cross-cutting, modernized, that overlap in all industries. So computer science / information technology / digital technology, whatever you want to call it, does overlap within all the careers, as well as business does too as well. Because in business, we have entrepreneurship, we have accounting, we have human resources, we have business information management. And so that really hits a whole lot of the career clusters, and certain careers are overlapped with that. In addition to education and training, that is a need. You know, part of our Perkins law we have to follow is how are we recruiting, retaining, and retraining individuals within these specific areas, whatever career cluster it can be. And since we work for the public education department, we are really struggling with how do we fill those positions in education, from teachers to educational administrators to custodians and so forth. So what are we doing to help support that? In addition, digital technology is a career that overlaps with all of those industries. We made our Perkins state plan more flexible with the fact that we have 3 statewide priorities that they can use their funding for. There are also regional priorities, and when looking at the regional priorities, and I was paying attention to the slide Sarita was presenting, health, the 9 out of 10 regions picked health as one of their regional priorities. 5 out of 10 picked architecture and construction as a regional priority, and 6 out of 10 picked agriculture as a regional priority. But then we made more flexibility there, because some of those, the funding can be used for these workforce initiatives, but the issue is in some of these schools, they don't have the personnel to teach these actual courses. They don't have industry partners to assist with this process. So what is best for their communities comes down to a local priority as to what they want to do. So if hospitality and tourism is what drives their community, then we are happy to support a program of study that has to do with hospitality and tourism, as long as they provide that labor market information or other evidence showing that those are high need or high skill or high wage. If it's not a high wage, at least it may be high need or high skill to support the workforce initiative. We have what is known as the Summer Enrichmentship Internship Program, which was started before I came into this office. So in 2021, it was launched with about $9.8 million for the program as part of pandemic relief efforts to try to boost up the economy with helping support the cost of summer internships for high school students around New Mexico. So we have partnered with government entities such as tribal governments and counties to help collaborate and braid partnerships between them and the businesses within their specific communities. Last year, we had about $8 million dedicated to that, and more than 2,700 interns across the state that were able to be a part of the summer internship program. This year, we have $9 million dedicated to that. And so we are already in the process of counties are already going through the interview process and hiring these students for the internship program and placing them where they are interested in, as well as where the need is at too as well. We have near peer tutoring, which is supposed to be a pipeline into the educational a pipeline into the educational and training program of study that we have. We hire students, so we provide flow through funding to the schools. So about $3 million went into near peer tutoring for those schools that applied for near peer tutoring. And so the students, they go into, we have high school students that go into middle and elementary schools, and they assist with high dosage tutoring to help students. It's not just so they use curriculum such as the Educators Rising curriculum to help guide these students into improving their literacy, their math skills, or their science skills. Innovation Zone schools and funding. So we have a new initiative. Last year, $13 million went into innovation zones, as well as this year, $14 million will go into innovation zone. And so we are looking at for those Perkins and Next Gen, we have Next Gen funding, which is in alignment with Perkins funding. So Perkins funding, we have $8 million. Next Gen funding is state appropriate money to help with these programs of study within the career technical education aspect. So we have $13 million that went into Next Gen last year. Another $13 million will go into Next Gen this year. And it's a little bit more flexible. So schools can use 50% of their funding for those approved programs of study, and they could use the other 50% of their funding for programs of study that they think are really important that come from that career cluster guide to help support their communities. So with Innovation Zone, it makes it more flexible. They can take any, they can use their money for work-based learning initiatives, career technical education, capstones, and other opportunities that are supposed to transform the high school experience to give students more of a hands-on learning, development, and training within the school. We have and support career technical student organizations. Those include career technical student organizations are awesome. They are great organizations that contribute to the leadership skills and competitive events that really focus on those careers that we are talking about. So Business Professionals of America, you have students that participate in events that align to business, entrepreneurship, health, and so forth. You have Skills USA, where students do competitive events that are related to the trades. You have HOSA, which is another great organization that contributes to hands-on learning and events related to health science. So, you know, if there's a career cluster, we've got a career technical student organization for that. In addition, we have, you know, the educator preparation program doesn't come from our office, but it comes from the growth and quality growth development office within the PED. And so what they have is they have a great pipeline of educator fellows, which is a 2-year program managed in order for those with a high school diploma who are aspiring to become a certified educator. So they have hands-on experience, funding that is available to help them during this process in order to determine if they want to continue to become an educator, whether that be an educational assistant, whether that be a certified teacher, or whether that be an administrator. And then we also have an initiative, we share a DWS employee with the Department of Workforce Solutions. And it is a great position, and the person that we have is awesome. She helps us out by getting the information about pre-apprenticeship programs, apprenticeship programs, WIOA, Be Pro, Be Proud, does presentations for schools and gives them all the information that is available out there in order for students to choose and continue on their career pathway and also know what resources there are out there for them. And last but not least, we have, the Early College High School Initiative. How is that important? Well, for us, it's really important because it gives students it gives them a kind of a leg up, or it gives them an opportunity for them to earn both degree or an industry credential. So these are some opportunities for them to already have some high school, for them already to have dual credit ready to go when they want to move on to whether it be a 2-year or a 4-year post-secondary degree or a certification. And so that also helps to get these students into the workforce a little bit earlier. And so these are a lot of initiatives. I do want to say we have a $60 million budget that we're really trying to push out right now that is supporting all of these initiatives. One of the other things that I do want to relay is that we have recently applied for a Disability Innovation Fund grant. And so we were awarded that by the Office of Special Education. And so what we are doing with that is we are using the funding to provide supports for special education students that are transitioning into the workforce too as well. So that is another initiative that I didn't put down on the slide that we are really focused on. We have provided funding to the 5 Centers for Independent Living organizations across the state in order to also help with that process. So it's not only just secondary students, we also have some adult assistance as well at both the post-secondary level and within this grant opportunity of the Centers for Independent Learning. Living, sorry.
Yeah, we're gonna have to move on. We're past time. Thank you for that presentation. We have our last slide. I have Patrick here from EDD. So if you want to come step up next to the speaker, and we'll just briefly talk to you about our program, JTIP, and then we can move into public comment. But my sense is that yeah, maybe you can tell us a bit more and maybe anecdotally related to some of the areas.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Patrick Gannon. I'm the program manager with the Economic Development Department. I've been with the JTIP program, representing the program for now 10 years. I just had my 10th anniversary. It's the probably the longest running job training program in the state. It's been in state statute since 1972. What we do is we work with companies that are primarily, actually solely in what we call economic-based companies. Those are companies that are producing a product or they have a service and they're exporting that out of the state. They basically bring in new dollars into the state's economy. So those are the kind of the primary companies we work with. Mostly manufacturing. Most of our funding goes to companies that are in manufacturing or what we call in the non-retail service sector. Again, those type of companies have to demonstrate that at least 50% of their revenue is coming from out of state, again, bringing new dollars into the state's economy. So companies we work with are companies that are looking at that have relocated to New Mexico or are considering relocating to New Mexico. The JTIP program is one of the key incentive programs that we leverage to attract new industry to the state. But it's also a program that is designed to work with, again, existing companies here that are growing, creating new jobs, expanding their workforce. And then the other thing about the program is we have the funding that comes from the legislative appropriations. We have our regular budget, and then we have special appropriations that we receive on an annual basis. And these dollars are really meant for training new individuals into newly created jobs. And depending on where those companies are located, will determine our level of reimbursement that we can provide them. So in urban companies, or companies that are located in an urban area like Albuquerque or Las Cruces or Los Alamos, the base reimbursement is 50%. So we can cover 50% of the wages anywhere between 2 to 6 months. If there's a company that's located in a rural community, which has a population of less than 60,000, their base reimbursement rate goes up to 65%. And then finally, if we have companies that are located in what we call our frontier communities or our Native American communities, they're considered frontier, and our reimbursement rate is 75%. So again, depending on where those companies are located and what kind of jobs are going to be created, we can fund anywhere between 2 to 6 months. We don't make any arbitrary decisions on how we make those awards to the companies. It's based on through the New Mexico, not New Mexico, excuse me, the U.S. Department of Labor, their ONET system. I don't know if anybody knows the ONET. It's basically a database of occupations. And what those databases, so companies are required to go into that database and find occupational codes that best resemble the positions that they're going to be coming to us for funding. And so in that process, the ONET sort of defines jobs by their level of complexity. So job zone 1s through job zone 4s. So a job zone 1 is considered a lightly skilled entry-level occupation, and a job zone 4 is just the opposite, more disciplined, be more technical in nature. So depending on how those jobs are classified in that database, will define how many hours we can appropriate to each type of occupation. So like a entry-level position would be, 320 hours. A more technical position like a software developer, an engineer, would qualify for maximum benefit of the 1,040 hours or 6 months of training. So, I mean, this is just a really quick overview of the thing. What we do is so we have a rather formal process. We have a JTIP board that meets the second Friday of every month. So we always have companies in our pipeline who are coming to us because they're expanding their operations and they want obviously some funding to help support those jobs. So we have this formal process. There's a formal application that is required. Companies define their hiring needs. They define the jobs that they're going to be creating in 6-month increments. So they could come to us and apply for one job, or they can apply for 500 jobs. But the reality is, realistically, what can they hope to fill in a 6-month window? What happens is once companies get awarded, they get awarded a 1-year grant agreement with our department. And again, so within that 1-year grant agreement, they have the first 6 months to hopefully fill those jobs. We don't help them find the jobs. We refer them to our partner organizations like the Department of Workforce Solutions and the local workforce connection offices around the state, which I believe there's 24 of them now, maybe 25.
23 last time I checked.
23? Okay, good. Well, I know there was one going into Sunland Park, right? That's why I was thinking maybe 24. Anyway, so once companies get awarded, we typically will direct them to their most respective or closest workforce connection office that they can receive support services. One is obviously posting the jobs in the state workforce system database, but also to work with the business service representatives to hopefully provide some additional business support services like recruiting events, qualified referrals to the companies, those kind of things. Let's see, what else can I tell you about this? We're pretty busy. As I mentioned, we have this JTIP board, second Friday of every month. The board is represented by representatives from various state agencies, the Economic Development Department, the Department of Workforce Solutions, the Department of Higher Education, the Department of Public Education. We have a representation of organized labor, and then a representative from the private sector. And collectively, that body of individuals meets the second Friday of every month and is there to basically entertain requests for funding. So that board basically makes the official ruling on the approval of funding for these to these companies for these jobs that they're going to be creating. Right now, this year, we've written our 87th contract, and we have appropriated or awarded $28 million this year for the program. Not all the funding gets utilized. I mean, companies get awarded, they have to hire the people, they have to train the people to the number of hours that we're awarded for the various positions, and then the companies are actually in a position to start claiming the money as such. So we have a lot of money encumbered, but not necessarily always drawn down. We do have a pretty high reversion rate, meaning, as I mentioned earlier, companies have the first 6 months of their 1-year grant agreement to hopefully fill those jobs. Any jobs that didn't get filled by the midpoint of those grant agreements, the money that we set aside for those jobs gets kind of rolled back into the program. So we have companies that are constantly reapplying for the jobs that didn't get filled, but also additional jobs that they see that they're going to be looking to hire. We have some companies we work with now that have been awarded 17, 18, 19 times. So we're seeing them like every 6 months because they're continually growing, expanding, creating net new jobs. What the program doesn't do is we don't recognize attrition or backfills. The program doesn't allow for that. We have to demonstrate that these are newly created, expanding companies with newly created jobs. So it's a little bit different.
We may just want to leave it there and allow some time for public comment because
Okay.
we're over our meeting time. But I'm sure if anyone has questions for you.
Well, I know that the focus here today is talking about the sustainable economy. So we do work with companies primarily in the solar sector. We are working with a company that's been awarded. It's located in Berlin called Arcosa Wind Turbines. So they're sort of in that green economy space. And we're partnering with the UNM Valencia campus. This is an example of a project. We're partnering with UNM Valencia to do a customized training program because the company is in need of about 100 welders. We know welders are kind of a scarce commodity in the state. So we're looking at putting together a customized training program for the company. And so, I'm sorry, your name in the green draft? Patricia, I'd like to talk to you about the IEP, specifically about the welding and see what resources we might be able to leverage.
We are over time and we are trying to get public comment.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, is anyone attending online or in person? Does anyone want to ask us a question for our presenters? We have most of the agencies still here. So if you would just raise your hand. I see Steve online.
Yeah, my name is Steve Singletary. I'm the training coordinator for the Southwest Carpenters Training Fund. And my question is in regards to the pre-apprenticeships. I know that pre-apprenticeships can be done both under PED or Workforce Solutions. So my question is for the pre-apprenticeships that would be servicing the construction trades, have you guys come up with any plan on how to deal with them being under 18 if these pre-apprenticeships are at the high school level? And what I mean by that is that workers' comp must be provided for any OJT hours. And right now, our contractors are basically needing 18 and older because of the cost of the workers' comp for under 18. Do you guys have any plans for funding for that aspect? And I will yield the floor back.
Well, thank you for the question. Through the program that I represent, the answer would be no. We don't have anything specifically for pre-apprenticeship for the construction trades. There are certain industry sectors that our program does not work in. We don't work in healthcare, construction, hospitality, or retail, or traditional agriculture. So I'm going to maybe defer your question and it'll open it up to others that may maybe have some information for you.
I can talk about the pre-apprenticeship program through the Department of Workforce Solutions. So our pre-apprenticeship program started off with the youth, so ages 16 to 24, in some cases 14 to 24 with a worker's permit. The way we employ our apprentices is they are technically employees of the state of New Mexico, so they are input into our system. DWS covers the wages, we cover the workman's comp, and we have an agreement with the employer. Now, with regards to construction-specific employers and employing anybody under the age of 18, I don't believe that we had any type of legal liability release. So we're not currently partnering with construction companies, especially with our 14 to 18-year-olds. I'm not sure if we have any agreements right now with any construction companies for those over the age of 18. But in those cases, DWS would cover the workman's comp, wages, and pay them directly. They would have a career consultant that they submit their timesheets to, and it just releases any type of liability or responsibility for the employer.
Okay, do we have anyone else online who wants to make a comment or ask a question, or anyone in person? Yeah.
Patrick, are you partnering yet with Maxion and any word on like what kind of skills are they gonna need and how?
We've had some early stage conversations. They have yet to break ground on the project. It was announced last fall that the company was gonna make this significant investment, one of the largest in the state, second to like Intel. And there'll be like 2,000 jobs created, but the details of those jobs have yet to be disclosed. Yeah. Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, well, thanks so much to everyone for being here. I think that will conclude our public comment. We're probably gonna wrap up, but just as some closing words, what we've attempted to do here is give you an overview of some of the changes in our workforce that are going to take place as a result of the issues that are raised in SB 112 and elsewhere, in terms of economic reliance on, excuse me, certain industries, and the need for diversification and the corresponding talents and skills that will be necessary to build up those industries and sustain things like healthcare and education into the future. So please email me if you have any questions about input into the state plan. We have a public input form online, but I'm also more than happy to receive a memo or an email that you send me directly, or if you want to call me, whatever that might be. And that's in addition to not to replace in-person meetings that will be occurring as well. So I think with that, we can entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move to adjourn.
Yeah. This is, we're adjourning the Sustainable Economy Task Force meeting on May 30th at 3:52 p.m. Is there a second?
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Nope. Okay. All right. Well, thanks everyone for being here, and these slides will be available on the